Hello everybody and welcome to another RTP Behind the Scenes. Today, I'm going to talk about a song that, while it might not be the most challenging bass part, my most difficult thing Geddy's ever played, it's a song that I find difficult to perform every night. So, I hope you enjoy. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of RTP Behind the Scenes. Today I'm going to talk about a song that I find challenging to play live, and that song is called The Big Money. Now, The Big Money is not the hardest song to play. The Big Money is not the most challenging bass part, not the most challenging vocals. But what makes it hard is the variations in the different verses, and also inside the verses how I end phrases. The reason that matters is because the way Geddy has the verses set up is the first verse is the most basic, if you will. It's not a basic song, but it starts out with not that much. And then he adds something in the second verse, he adds something else in the third verse. And so keeping that in mind is one thing. But then at the end of each phrase, at the end of each like 4-bar phrase, he has a different turnaround. And those are synced up with the drums. And so I can't blow them. I have to play the correct fill at the correct time to match what Tom is playing. And if I don't, it sounds kind of sloppy. And so I'm constantly having to monitor my fingers, basically, monitor the bass. So I'm doing this context switching between the singing, remembering which big money I happen to have to sing at this point. It goes around the world, underground, and then also, all right, what are my fingers doing at this point? There are other songs where the fingers are just as busy, but because there's no variation, it isn't as hard to perform. One example would be like Vital Signs. That's all it ever does. So once you get that under your fingers, you don't have to worry about it so much, right? You can start thinking about other things or focusing on singing or whatever without having to, you don't have to change, right? You just let your fingers go once you get that under your fingers, once you get yourself, automatic on that. So the context switching isn't there. Your brain can't do two things at once, and so you have to be swapping back and forth quickly between them. And so in The Big Money, yeah, I can't do that. So The Big Money, basically, the verse, if I just take the verse, it's an E minor pentatonic riff. Right? That's all it is. And it's a cool riff. It's cool. But the problem is those turnarounds, and then remembering what to do come the next verses and singing at the same time. That, to me, that's what makes it a challenge for the performing of it. The actual sitting down and playing isn't so bad. So, for example, the first verse, big money goes around the world, big money on the ground, big money got a mighty voice, big money make no sound. And the turnarounds that I was talking about is the first one. The second one is the second one, right? And then they'll change in the second and third verse. So that's really the part that I find challenging, is just where am I going? Which one am I at while I'm trying to sing it? The second verse takes that riff and adds an extra note. It adds a harmonic, which is actually kind of a cool thing. So the 7th fret D string, the A harmonic, just gets put in the middle of the riff. So instead of, it's okay. And then again, those turnarounds end up being a little bit different. So the second half, by the way, the second half of the verse is the same thing down in B, without the harmonics, without a lot of the intricacies. And so the second half is actually fairly easy. It's that first half that's the problem. So then going into the third verse, after the solo and the turnaround, it's the same thing, but now he adds an extra B. So the riff, which was, and then turned into, is now, so the whole riff, including that ending, which I have to do because Tom's got this very, very unique, very specific fill right at the end there. So those are the three. And then the other part that is not the singing, but is also a little bit of a challenge just mentally, is getting into the solo. So the solo in the Big Money, the guitar solo, is... All right, so solo. I'm sorry, I had to pause the recording and feed a very loud and hungry cat. So the solo being the other section of the song. Now, the solo section actually isn't that bad, other than the fact that he has a 2/4 bar right in the beginning, right before he starts. So there's that whole spacey keyboard thing going underneath the guitar solo. And then when the drums kick in with the bump, it's actually a 6/4 bar. So it's 4 plus an extra 2 before we start in. So there's that. There's also a cool riff. This is not make it hard. This is just cool. I'm just sharing something I kind of like. He goes up here high on the neck, and then immediately comes back down here. And so again, he's playing around with these octaves again. So he's playing this D here, and he's playing the same D here. And and that's kind of this thing messing around with octaves he was doing, like with the verse riff, basically playing up there, down here. Now he's playing this in two different places, pretty much in the same run. You wouldn't even know that he was doing that unless you had to sit down and figure out what he was playing. So the solo section itself. So cool stuff. Anyway, so like I said, not the hardest song to play necessarily, but to perform, keeping all of that in mind while I'm trying to sing, and especially in the Big Money, remembering which Big Money I'm singing at that moment. Because it's one thing when you've got a whole story that you're talking about, or you've got all these different images that you're trying to represent, but when the whole song is just Big Money this, Big Money that, Big Money this, Big Money that, and you're focusing on all this other stuff, that's a workout, a mental workout for me. So with that said, that would be one of the songs that I find challenging to play live. All right, everybody. Until next time, take care.